In fact, we can skip that news conference and get to the details from the man himself. He's been gracious enough to join us because there are a few niggling questions that need to be answered, and so he has been gracious to join us today. Mr. Bicham, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for
Pleasure
having
as
us,
always to meet you. So first of all, let me begin with the agency and the work you do. From January up until this now, there's been a lot of talk about government creating jobs, the YEA creating a lot of jobs. How many jobs has the YEA created?
Well, as at last night, we had recruited, trained, employed and deployed 62,825 young Ghanaians across many modules.
And this is in the space of how many years?
This is between April 2016 and last night.
Yes,
sir.
So in this year alone, from April until yesterday, 62,000 jobs you have created. And when you say jobs, what kind of jobs are we talking about here?
Okay, we were given a target of 100,000 by my Honorable Sector Minister, Haruna Idrisu. And to be able to create 100,000 jobs, you need to be a little creative and innovative when you are creating those jobs. So as a strategy, what we decided to do was to partner with what we call strategic partners, both public and private, to create those jobs. Our mandate is to develop, coordinate, and supervise the creation of jobs, not to actually create the jobs. So what we do is we partner with those who we have identified have gaps in terms of finance and labor, and then collaborate with them to create those jobs.
So with even what you mentioned, and I was asking the question, what kind of jobs do these 62,000 find themselves in?
Well, if I can quickly run through our modules. We started with the Ghana Police Force. We have trained, recruited, trained, deployed, and employed 4,800. Ghana Education Service, 20,603 community education service teachers. Ghana Health Service, 19,500 community health workers. Fire Service, 2,000. Prison Service, 2,000. Environmental Protection Officers, 2,500. Part of the Ghana Education Service, but in particular the Islamic Education Units, 5,000. Youth in Coastal Sanitation, 5,000. We have a partnership with the Regional Maritime University to train what we call marine engineering technicians, 200 there, and paid interns. Total of 62,825.
Okay, let's delve into the specifics, because with these areas and the modules you've mentioned, I'm quite curious. You mentioned the Ghana Police Service and the Fire Service. I thought they do their recruitment themselves. So how come the YEA is involved in this one?
What we do is we identify gaps. We have the resources, so we essentially go to our strategic partners and ask, do you have a requirement for labor? We have the money. We are prepared to help you recruit, train, employ, and deploy the youth. The UN standard for policing is 1 policeman to 500 Ghanaians. Before the YEA came in, we were at 1 policeman to 810. We recruited and trained 4,800. That essentially represented a 16% increase, and the ratio has now come down to 1 policeman to 704. Essentially, there's a gap. We can go all the way to 500, but we are doing it in phases.
Okay.
So the need is there. We more or less bridge the gap between demand.
And again, I need to understand this, because often when these things come up, there are issues of parallel recruitment and how things are done. I remember not too long ago, the Ghana Police Service. I said that because there have been issues in the past with the Ghana Police Service and their recruitment. So when you say you've helped them to employ a certain number of people, is this within their regular recruitment? You identify people and you get them in there, or what? What exactly do they do?
No, you see, the proper policeman is trained for 6 months, but ours is like a stopgap measure. So we take the young people, we train them for a month, and then we put them back in their communities as community policing assistants.
Okay.
So the police will continue with their regular recruitment as and when they have to. But whilst their training centers are not being employed, we use it to create more community policing assistants.
Okay, so for these community policing assistants, are we talking temporal jobs for 6 months to 1 year? What is it?
Our program is designed such that our beneficiaries are employed for 2 years. We equip them with skills, job-related skills, life skills. The requisite discipline is acquired through the training, and then they are attached to various police stations across the country. In the space of 2 years, they will assist the police, they will keep their community safer, and they will gain work experience. And the hope, we have discussed it with all our service partners. The strategy is at the end of the 2-year period, when the police are doing their recruitment, not only the police but other services, when they're doing their recruitment, they give priority to our beneficiaries.
Okay, so bearing that in mind and the explanation you've just given, I need to ask this. You've only given us the statistics for April to yesterday, but in the past 4 years, how many jobs has YEA created?
I don't have those figures at hand at the moment, but there have been many success stories with. The YEA came into existence only in 2015. An act of parliament was passed, Act 887, and that's when the Youth Employment Agency came into being. Before that, it was the Ghana Youth, it was GIDA, and prior to that, it was NYEP, National Youth Employment Program. There were success stories. In fact, what we are doing is not the first time we are doing it. We've done it before in the past. The figures, I don't have them at hand, but yes, we've done it before.
And I asked that question because of the communication we've been getting from government. I know that for the communications minister, he's mentioned a figure of how many jobs have been created, 700,000 at the last count. The president, not too long ago, in the Eastern region or even in the Volta region, mentioned that they are looking to create up to 4 million jobs. What's the plan here? Because often when there's talk of jobs, they look at, are these seasonal jobs? Are these permanent jobs? How often are they paid? How sustainable are these modules?
Ours essentially is to, like I said, plug a gap. You know, the youth would otherwise be unemployed. We exist to essentially bridge the gap between now and in the future, when hopefully the economy will improve and there will be more jobs available. But we have to create employment for them now. Now, it has to be a path. A path through who? A path through potential prospective employers in the future. And that's why we select strategic partners, both public and private, to create these jobs. They are trained. They will work. They will acquire the requisite skills. And at the end of the 2-year period, the emphasis is on, of course, when you work with somebody for 2 years, you're bound to form some bonds with somebody. Some of them will be pretty good, and you will take them on. And the president has admonished the security services to, as much as possible, give preferential treatment to the YEA beneficiaries in 2 years' time when they are recruiting their regular intake.
Okay.
So this is a very sustainable model. The Youth Employment Agency has a dedicated source of funding. You know, if you're talking about financial sustainability.
And what's that source of funding?
Our Act 887, enumerates the following. 80% of the mobile communication tax comes to us every month. 10% of the District Assembly's Common Fund comes to us. 5% of GET Fund comes to us. And then there's a catch-all phrase, the fourth one, that says any other monies that Parliament deems it necessary for the operation of the.
And how do you account for these funds that come to you?
We account for them the normal way any public service institution will account for them. The Auditor General comes in every year to come and audit our accounts, and a couple of times we've been summoned to Parliament to go and explain certain aspects of our operations. So just like any other public service organization, we are accountable.
Okay.
Totally transparent.
Now I need to ask this because we know the story, and you've already mentioned that there are positives to this, but history will tell us that there was a reason why it moved from GIDA to YEA today. It's meant to create something new, improve on the past and make things better. What's new about the YEA, learning from the lessons from GIDA?
The major difference between the organization of yesteryear and the organization of today is the law. Once upon a time, we didn't have a law. We didn't have a legal framework within which we exist. But now we have Act 887, which essentially is a legal framework that spells everything we do, how we do it, and what not to do and what to do. It's so granular. It even tells us how much money to dedicate to different aspects of the program. It's a very detailed law. We are supposed to comply with all financial laws. For example, procurement laws. We can't do business with any private sector provider without going through the procurement process. So the major difference is the legal framework within which we now operate.
And since that time, since that it was created up until this minute, how are things looking? How improved is it from what we know in the past?
There's a huge difference. You see, in this country, we have a law for everything. There's even a law for checking things into the warehouse and checking them out of the warehouse. The law is that detailed. It's all about making sure you're conversant with the law and you're following every aspect of the law. And our act enjoins us in particular to make sure that we follow the dictates of the law. Otherwise, I, as the Chief Executive Officer, get punished.
Okay, let me now get to understand the work that these 62,000 are doing as we speak. So for each person, let's begin with the police service, the assistants who are in there. Do you know how much they're paid at the end of the month, for instance?
Yes. In our budget we presented to Parliament, every single beneficiary gets slightly more than the minimum wage, which is 300 Ghana cedis.
A month?
A month.
And that is paid how?
That is paid. We have a totally, let me call it innovative system. Once upon a time, payments used to be cash-based. His Excellency the President instructed no cash. The Youth Employment Agency of today is a cashless organization. We have partnered with the eSwitch platform. All these beneficiaries during training, their biometric details are captured. Everybody's given an eSwitch card. It comes onto our beneficiary payroll software. So we pay them direct to their eSwitch cards from us.
Okay. And that's across board for all the modules you have?
Every single beneficiary.
Okay. Now, what's the plan here? Yes, you're in charge. 62,000 as of today. 100,000 is the target for the end of this year.
Yes, sir.
What's the plan for the next year?
Next year, we are actually in the process of creating our budget and our modules for next year. I'm pretty confident that we will replicate most of these modules plus a few more other modules that we have in the pipeline.
Okay. I need to ask this. Considering the funding has been a problem in the past, is this a sustainable way of creating youth employment in this country?
Yes, yes, it is. Like
Why
I
is
said,
it sustainable?
every time you and I make a phone call, the telcos pay a tax to the government, and 80% of that tax comes to us. Every month it hits our accounts. That's how sustainable it is. As long as you and I keep making phone calls, we'll be getting money to employ the youth of Ghana.
Okay. There's an element you detailed when you are talking about the source of funding. You mentioned a number of them, and you said there was an element where as and when you need funds, that comes in. How is that regulated?
It will be regulated using the normal regulatory processes relating to public service organizations. So if Parliament decides that, okay, this year we want to create, let's say next year we want to create 400,000 jobs, and it is deemed that the funds available are not enough, Parliament hopefully might vote some extra money to us, and we'll treat it the same way we treat all other government money, with the same processes, the same transparency, the same probity.
Okay. Much as this is a good idea, what about, and you mentioned that you were doing this for both public and private organizations. So which private organizations are getting your people in these modules?
The focus was on rolling out the modules with the public sector. So you notice that most of the modules are enumerated are public service organizations. Yes. We are now slowly transitioning to dealing with the private sector. Everything we do, we have a module. We plan, we execute, we monitor, we evaluate. We start out small, and then we follow this module. We've done with the private sector. We've ramped up the numbers. We are near 62 now. We've started with what we call the paid interns. In the next week or so, you'll see a couple of adverts going out to the private sector and to the public sector. With the private sector, we are asking if you have any vacancies, if you have any youth that you need in your organization, who you are prepared to impart some experience to, who you are prepared to mentor, we will essentially meet you halfway in paying them.
Okay. And these are some of the questions I received today when I informed friends that you are coming today. They mentioned that for modules like youth in driving, youth in sanitation, are those modules still running?
Youth in driving, youth in sanitation were modules of yesteryear.
Past, yes.
We are looking at, we didn't do them this year. We might consider them next year. I mean, we have so many modules, we have so many innovations, we have so many creative ideas that we are trying. You have a dedicated research and planning department that evaluates all these modules, fleshes out the concept, and then it goes to business advisory. And it's for business advisory to say, this is a good idea, that's not a good idea, and then recommend it to management.
So if I understand you, modules from GIDA were all frozen out, and new ones were created?
I wouldn't say they were frozen out. They essentially had their time. We started a new YE. We started with a new strategy, a new set of modules. If there are any modules in the past that worked, for example, the community police assistants, the community health workers, they worked in the past. Community education, they worked in the past. We've quickly adopted them. We've quickly rolled out the jobs. If there are any other modules that are acceptable to our research department and our business advisory, and they make a case for it at management, we will happily implement them.
Okay. I need to ask you this, and I'm sure you'll be able to answer this. Considering the kind of story we've seen in the past and where you are now as Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Employment Agency, is this a difficult job to handle?
No job is easy. No job is easy. I'm sure a job is not easy.
Of course.
Yes, no job is easy.
But I'm saying that bearing in mind what the story has been from the past up until this minute.
Every job is a job. No matter how difficult my job is, my focus is to make sure I achieve what I've been tasked to do by His Excellency the President. I don't worry about how difficult the job is. I just get on with the job.
Are you minded by what's happened in the past?
Yes, of course. Nobody wants to go to jail.
You don't want to?
Yebo, no.
So you're doing everything you can to do that?
I'm doing everything to run an accountable, transparent youth employment agency that does what it's supposed to do, create sustainable jobs for the youth of Ghana.
I need to ask this. For the agency you have now, do you have carry-on staff from GIDA?
Yes, we do. I'm happy to say I inherited most of my staff from the previous era.
Okay.
It involves, you see, you hear a lot of bad stories about GIDA and NYEP, but we learn to forget the past and focus on the future.
But does that not inspire decisions you take today, considering that there have been mistakes in the past that you learn from to be better?
At the YEA of today,
yes,
we have the law, we have processes, we have procedures, we have internal controls. When I was entering the job, I was asked to read the law, read the procedures, read this, read that. I encourage everybody I work with to read the law. When you come before me with something, has it followed procedure? No, you go back. Slowly over a period of time, we have all adopted a different mindset, a different work ethic. We follow procedure, we follow the law, the laws of the land. And it's a totally different organization. And that's how come we've been able to create 62,000 jobs in the past few months. That's a world record.
Okay. Personally, what do you seek to achieve with this job?
I just want to make a difference. I always say Kwame Nkrumah came from a little village in the Western region. Even today, it's pretty difficult to get there or to come to Accra from there. But the system gave Kwame Nkrumah a chance, and he became what he became for Ghana. If we can give a few Ghanaian youth a similar chance. Everybody needs a chance. If you can give somebody a chance, it will make a difference to the person's life, it will make a difference to the person's household, his community, and eventually the nation.
Mr. Beecham, thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure as always.